Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Em and welcome to this March Ketchup and Pickles vlog. If this is the first time you've caught this series, this is basically my monthly reset where I try to catch up on my TBR and maybe read some things for fun that aren't on my TBR. That's always the idea. The ideal is always that I read one book that was on my TBR, one book for fun, back and forth and back and forth. I've yet to do that, and I don't think this one is going to be any different because it is February 20th and I have not read most of my TBR, and I don't know how good I'm going to do about catching up, but we'll see. Let's dive into what I am currently reading real fast. Okay. I am currently reading North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. This is my February book for my year of Butler and Gaskell, where I am alternating reading a book by Octavia E. Butler and Elizabeth Gaskell. This is a reread for me, and I am 134 pages in. I procrastinated starting this for so long that I am now doing my tab system where I have to read a certain number of pages a day in order to finish it by the end of the month, and I'm behind. I'm behind, but that's okay. These are yesterday's pages, which I have yet to read, and then I have all of today's pages. It's okay. I can catch up. I have most of tomorrow off, and the plan is to catch up with this book. I'm also reading Valor by John Gwen for Becca's Backlist Book Club, Catch-Up Book Club. Anyways, we're supposed to be reading Faithful and the Fallen. I read Malice a year ago and gave it 3.5 stars and thought it was fine. I also had to do my homework tab assignment for Valor, and I am 41% in, and when I tell you I am so bored by this book that it literally feels like homework, and it feels like math homework, which is like the worst type of homework. So this might be a DNF. Well, we'll talk about it, but this might be a DNF. I'm not having a good time. And then I have started the 100 Years War. Is it on Palestine? Yeah, the 100 Years War on Palestine, which I am supposed to be reading on my Kobo, but yeah, I have been reading this for a week and have yet to get out of the introduction, which I don't think is the book's fault. I think it's my ability to focus. So maybe if I actually DNF this, I will have more patience and focus to work on this. I have to figure some things out. And then I also have a few books left on my TBR that I would really like to get done. If you watched my vlog last week where I was trying to organize my reading, I just want to let you know I have soft DNF'd Assistant to the Villain. I'm going to come back to it, but I think I just need to put it on a TBR. I also went a number of days in between reading it, and that is not how I want to consume that book. That is a book I'm pretty sure where I need to read it as quickly as possible and to have a good time with it. If I drag it out, it's not going to be good for anybody. So what I would like to get to before the end of the month is I would like to read 1984, which is for the Betty's Pages Challenge Yourself Reading Challenge. That is a priority. And I also really want to listen to the audiobook of Watermoon, which is my buzzword reading challenge pick for this month. So those are the two that are high priority. I really want to get to those two amidst all the other things. So yeah, welcome to this video. We're just going to do this real quick introduction while my house is empty, but everybody is about to come home soon. So we will do a proper update tomorrow. Since I have the day off, I am going to go to a coffee shop in the morning, and then tomorrow is a run day, which I'm actually looking forward to. I don't know. It's weird. For now, I need to go order dinner because we're getting takeout tonight as a treat because it's been a long week, and we're all tired, and I don't want to cook. So it's a win. It's a win-win for everybody. But yeah, welcome to the vlog. I'm so happy you're here, and let's hope these next 8 days are successful ones. Good morning, friends. It is the next day. It's almost 10:30. I got the kids off to school. I went and did my run. I finished a book for another vlog, and now the only project I have to think about is this video, which is great. Let's talk about Valor because I told you we would talk about it. I read a little bit more last night. Actually, I was reading it physically. I've been bouncing back and forth between the audiobook and the physical book, and I was reading it last night, and my husband came in and he's like, "Why are you still reading it? You said you were bored." Here's the thing. I said I wanted to do Ketchup Book Club this year, and I spent an audiobook credit on this audiobook. I put it into my reading journal. I prematurely, probably, committed to reading this series, but I'm so bored. I am so bored with this book. And I think I get stuck because I have seen so many people give this series 5 stars, and I want to know, I want to understand why. I want to be in on it. I want to get the love, but it's just not for me, I think is what it comes down to. I don't have a problem with the writing. It's fine. I think the pacing is probably not for me. It feels slow. There are 35 million characters, and I only care about maybe 2 of them. I don't like that I only like 2 of the characters, and it's just too much to keep track of. Also, there are just too many fight scenes. There are too many battles. And I love a good fight scene, but I like there to be a build-up to the fight scene. I feel like in this one, it's every other chapter, like somebody's fighting, and I'm just so bored. So I think I will why am I struggling to give up on this book? This should not be this hard. It should not be this hard to decide that this is not, like, officially be like, this series is not for me, which also was my, like, instinctual response last January when I read Malice, was that, oh, I can see the appeal, but this is not for me. I don't need to keep going. And then I just, like, talked myself in to reading book 2, even though I knew in my gut last year that this was not a series for me. I have to DNF it. I have to do it just for my own peace of mind. This is gonna, if I push through this for another week, it's gonna suck all the joy out of reading. And I do not want that for me, especially like when I just finished a 5-star book. Like for the other video project, I'll link it because it'll be up by the time this goes up. But I just finished a 5-star book. I know what a book that's for me feels like. And this is not it. Okay, I'm gonna DNF. I don't feel good about it, but I think it will be good. Did I catch up? Yes, I did catch up on North and South last night. I just got into bed after dinner and I just read. with my eyeballs, largely. I did not lean on the audiobook as much as I thought I was going to. So North and South is a classic. When was this written? Elizabeth Gaskell was a contemporary of Charlotte Bronte, I think. They were besties. It was first published in 1855. And I think even Elizabeth Gaskell might have written Charlotte Bronte's biography, maybe, if I'm remembering that correctly. And this is about Margaret Hale, who has grown up in southern rural England, and her father has been a parson. Is that what it has been? I think. Has been in the church her whole life, and he has a crisis of faith and has to leave the church because he can no longer preach and feel good about it. And they move to the town of Milton, which is in the north of England and is a factory town. And there her father becomes a tutor, and one of the men he is tutoring is Mr. Thornton, and Thornton owns one of the mills. And while they are in Milton, a strike starts among the workers of these 3 big mills that are in the town. And it's so interesting because there are so many components in this that mirror Pride and Prejudice. Though Margaret is an only child, I would say she has a lot of similar personality traits to Lizzie Bennet. I think Margaret's parents have a very Mr. and Mrs. Bennet style of parenting and relationship with each other, though I think the Hales' marriage is much more affectionate than the Bennet's marriage is, but just through time and I guess preoccupation, they have become dismissive of each other. But I feel like there is like real affection there. Anyways, so they move to Milton, and Margaret makes friends with she makes friends with a girl named Bessie who is really ill, and she is a former factory worker, and she became ill because she worked in a cotton factory and the cotton got into her lungs. And while Margaret is forming this relationship with Bessie, who very much has like a pure sick person mold to fill, like Jane Eyre's friend in the beginning of Jane Eyre, the girl in the orphanage that's ill, that like teaches Jane to be pious and to forgive and to not, or tries to teach her to not be so forceful or angry, like that, you know, like in classic literature, like that character archetype. So Bessie is definitely fulfilling that in this book. And then Margaret was also getting to know Thornton, who again owns one of the mills. And so it's a very interesting dichotomy, because when Margaret is at Bessie's house, she's learning about the workers' plight, and you know, Margaret's never grown up around factories, so this is all really new to her, and she's learning a lot. And then she goes and she is around Thornton and his family, and they are talking about the strike from the owner's perspective. And I remember really loving this when I read it 7 years ago. I remember really, really loving it. And I'm not loving it as much right now on the reread, though I'm only 184 pages in. Like, I still have quite a ways to go. And there is, I mean, not a spoiler, because if you've seen the miniseries, you know, there is a romance between Margaret and Thornton. And that hasn't started yet. Thornton is very much interested in Margaret, but Margaret is fairly dismissive of him so far. And so I'll be interested to see how my opinions about the book change once the romance starts. I remember just being swept away by the romance. Ugh, I just loved it so much. I'm glad I'm rereading it because it is interesting to evaluate. I'm a very different reader too than I was 7 years ago. So it'll be good. But I am going to continue this today. I think I have to read about 40 pages a day is what it is, which isn't too hard if I don't fall behind. I did start 1984 last night, and I didn't realize that this is like, I think the origin of Big Brother is Watching You, like that is from this book. And then I guess if I DNF Valor, I have room to read something else, probably something from my TBR would be ideal. I do want to read Watermoon, but I think I'm going to go to a coffee shop and I want to take something I can read physically. I only have Watermoon on audio. I don't have a physical book. I might after this weekend. We are going to a bookstore on Sunday, so I might grab a copy if it's there because I really do want to read it. I did download the audiobook for the 100 Years War on Palestine. So what I'm probably going to do is just take my Kobo, my earbuds, and North and South to the coffee shop and kind of float around. But I figured if I'm going to make any progress on the 100 Years War on Palestine, I need the audiobook because otherwise I'm just going to stall out big time. And I've been so overwhelmed, as I'm sure a lot of people have, about just the constant state of chaos and stress and fear that is in the United States right now with our current administration. And I'm trying to like stay informed and manage my stress. And so far my tactic is I have 1 week where I pay attention, and then I have a week where I don't pay attention as hard. I still do, but I'm not. Like, I take a break from all my news podcasts for a week. And I thought having the audiobook of the 100 Years War on Palestine would be really good for those weeks when I am not paying as close attention, because then that audiobook can kind of take the place of podcasts in my life, even though obviously 100 Years War on Palestine is not going to be like a light, fluffy, easy read. That is also a hard thing to learn about and to be knowledgeable about. But I can't go full ostrich. I wish I could. I just can't do it. I have to be learning something. So, what else was I talking about? Oh, so the plan. Okay, we're going to get coffee, and we're taking these things, and we'll caffeinate and learn and read and return Valor to the library.
the insta-love in this book. We're only 200 pages in, and Thornton, his first name's John, by the way, I remembered, is like, I love you. I love you. After there's like a riot because he brought in workers from Ireland to work the mill while his employees were on strike. And of course, like, his employees freaked out and tried to storm his house. And Margaret happened to be there for other reasons, and like, she provoked him into going out and talking to them rather than calling for police. And then when like the mob started to get violent and she realized her mistake, she goes out to protect him, like to try to talk reason to the people out there. And somebody throws a pebble and it strikes Margaret in the face, and she bleeds and she's okay. And then she gets like dizzy and she ends up passing out. And while she's passed out, he's like, oh, Margaret, my Margaret, how I love you. I'm like, bro, you don't know her. My goodness, you don't know her. So I'd forgotten, or maybe didn't remember. I mean, those are the same things. I'd forgotten about the insta-love. Calm down, dude. She doesn't even like you very much right now. Also, if you didn't want spoilers for an almost 200-year-old book, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to tell you. It's still real good. And I got the miniseries from the library, so I'm going to watch that this weekend because I haven't watched it in a hot minute, and I think that will be fun. The insta-love took me out a little bit. Hello. It has been all day. My husband is gone. He has a work thing. Twins are at their performance for the play that they're in at their school. The youngest is watching a Kung Fu Panda movie, so that might be trickling in, hopefully not too much. And I need to start making dinner, but I got almost everything done on my list. The only thing I didn't really get done is vacuuming the kids' bedrooms because I was not successful in getting them to adequately clean their rooms, and the youngest's sheets are still in the dryer, and so once those finish, I'll put those on their bed, and then yeah, my list is basically done. So yay. I ended up reading like an extra chapter in North and South because I was cleaning the bathroom, and I didn't realize that I'd reached the end, like the last chapter that I needed to read, so I'm like a chapter ahead, which is great. Means I can read a little bit less tomorrow. And I watched the first episode of the BBC miniseries of this, and my middle kid watched it with me because they're usually the one who will like watch like the romantic comedy stuff or just the romantic stuff. That actually, as I was putting it in, they were like, okay, but what about Pride and Prejudice? Could we just watch Pride and Prejudice instead? And I was tempted, but no. And it was really funny because in the first scene with Richard Armitage, they were like, I'm not impressed. And then by the end of the first episode, it had morphed to, oh my gosh, he's so handsome. So we went on quite a journey. But I'm excited to keep watching it. It's very interesting how it syncs up with the book, what they cut out, what they fast forward through, and just like the little breadcrumbs they drop in episode 1 of stuff that's going to become a bigger deal later, and it's just kind of mentioned offhandedly in that first episode. Yeah, I don't like Margaret's parents any better in like all the traits that really bother me in the book or annoy me about certain people in the book are amplified so much more in the miniseries. But I do think Bessie's character is improved in the miniseries. She has a lot more depth. She's a lot more feisty. She challenges Margaret a lot more. Or maybe she can, because I feel like Bessie does challenge Margaret a little bit in the book, but I feel like it's more confrontational. Not in an antagonistic kind of way, but just in a, why haven't you thought about this yet kind of way. And then, of course, because I cannot just stick to what I say I'm going to do, I'm reading too many books. Again, I got Coup de Grace by Sophia Ajaram from the library. I don't know if you can see it. I'll put the actual cover here. This is a novella. I think it's horror. I just felt like I just said those two words really weird. And I've wanted to read this for a long time, and I've had a hold on it for a while, and it just came in and I want to read it. So of course I started it, and I've already highlighted several passages. So I don't know, when we go to the bookstore tomorrow, I might be keeping an eye out for this, or I might try to read more tonight to get an idea if this is something that I'm going to really love and I'll want a finished copy of to put on my shelf, or to like actually go through and highlight what I'm highlighting on the ebook. But this is about a man who is on the subway and he is traveling to a destination with the intent of ending his life. And I think he's going to get stuck in a labyrinth of sorts. And anyways, I really liked what I read already a lot. Like, I really loved the writing. There were a couple of really impactful quotes for me. Like, there's this line where he's talking about how he's been battling depression and anxiety disorder since he was a kid, and that how it's gotten worse lately. And then he says, "You'd think that I'd have my shit under control, but this stage between youth and middle age is where life hits you with a series of premature bereavements, the withering ember of dreams, finances, aging parents, the future. We are promised the world, but by the time we hit 30, life knocks us over the head with a baseball bat like we're a fucking piñata at a gender reveal party, and we're struck by the futility of it all. Our finances are indelibly fucked, our dreams are scattered ash, and the future has been salted." And I just love that. It's like, it's true, it's kind of, it's funny, but then it's also a little bit of an emotional gut punch to read. And yeah, I'm just absolutely loving it. So of course I haven't read any of the 100 Years War on Palestine today. I haven't read any of 1984. I did listen to about 4 chapters of Water Moon while I was doing chores, and then I switched over to the audiobook for North and South, just so that I wasn't going to be scrambling to get that done. And then I also picked up a book I had on hold at the library that I'm really excited to read. And that is The End of Everything, Astrophysically Speaking by Katie Mack. And this is nonfiction. Katie Mack is an astrophysicist, and it's 5 chapters, and each chapter is a way that the universe could end. So it goes through, like, these are the 5 possible finales. It's the Big Crunch, Heat Death, Big Rip, Vacuum Decay, and The Bounce. I don't know what any of those are, though I read them to my husband and he knew what each of them was. It says it's a wildly fun, surprisingly upbeat ride to the farthest reaches of all that we know. And I think this is I think this is going to make me feel insignificant in like the best kind of way. And it's short, and I haven't read a nonfiction, or I haven't finished a nonfiction this month, and I don't know that I am going to finish The 100 Years War in Palestine before Friday. I don't know that I necessarily want to, because I just feel like I'd have to cram it in, and I don't think I want to cram that book. Like, I'm okay with rolling that over into March, but I got too excited about all the things. But like I said, E's watching a movie. I'm gonna go make dinner. I'll probably listen to a little bit of Water Moon while I'm making dinner. Oh no, I'm gonna watch BookTube. Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm not gonna read while I cook. But then after I get dinner in the oven and it's cooking, I'll come back and I'll pick something up. And then yeah, like I said, tomorrow we're gonna go to Barnes & Noble. I have a couple of things that I'm gonna have my eye out for. Like, I'm gonna check, well, I guess I'll read more of Coup de Grace so that I can decide if I want to buy a physical copy while I'm there. But I know my local indie also has a copy, and I get a discount at my local indie because I work there. So I should probably do that. Anyways, I'm so excited to go to the bookstore tomorrow. So I'm going to go so that I can actually get something done. And I'll talk to you tomorrow after we're home from the bookstore and I can tell you about my book haul. Okay, friends, happy Sunday. Let me get settled and I'll give you a little haul from today. We went to the Bougie Mall, which is mostly outside, but it has like a Barnes & Noble and like a Lululemon and an Anthropologie and, you know, all the like, I mean, Barnes & Noble's isn't expensive, but you know, all like the high end, like there's a Madewell store there. It's the Bougie Mall. And it's also the closest Barnes & Noble to us. But it's also on the way to the closest Costco to us. And I wanted to go to Costco. So kind of just rolled it all into one. I'm not going to show you the Costco haul because it's not very exciting. But I did finally. I've wanted one of these mugs from Anthropologie for a really long time. This light is going to make it look greenish, but it's just sky blue with these little clouds. I think it's really darling. I'm hoping this will help me get back into making iced coffee at home because I definitely moved away from making iced coffee at home and doing energy drinks instead. And I know those aren't good for me, but they just make me so happy. So I do think this is darling, and I like that it's thicker glass, so it might survive my house a little bit longer. And then book-wise, I got Walking Practice by Dolki Min. This is a book in translation. I believe it's been translated from, was it Japanese or Korean? Anyways, it doesn't matter. I heard about this from Gabby. This is about an alien who comes down to Earth and is disabled by gravity, and so they have to like practice walking. They also eat humans to survive, and then like I think wear the human skin suit and like need to practice walking in the skin suit, I think. But I've heard this had it's weird, but also had like really lovely things about like gender and being non-binary, and I have 2 non-binary kids, so I was really eager to pick this up. It sounds like it'll be really good and interesting, and yeah. And then Barnes & Noble had Sword Heart out early by T. Kingfisher, and yeah, I definitely own the indie published version of this, and I definitely haven't read it yet, and I picked up the newly traditional published copy anyways because I just think it's so pretty. I mean, see, it's so pretty. I'm so excited to read this. And yeah, now I have no excuse because now I have 2 copies of it. But this is romantasy, I think. But you know, like Tiki and Fisher style romantasy. So that's our little shopping haul. And I am making progress on 100 Years War in Palestine. I finished chapter 1 today. It's basically, or not chapter 1, but like war 1, because it's broken up based on the wars. And I think if I like read a war each day, I might be able to finish it by Friday. I haven't read any North and South yet, so I still need to do that. And I am still reading Watermoon. I'm 19% in. It's fine. It's about this woman she and her father own this magical pawn shop where they buy people's choices and the memories that go along with those choices. And then one day, memory or choice goes missing, and so she embarks on this journey to get it back. And like I said, it's fine. I'm not obsessed the way I thought it would be. I had initially planned to buy a physical copy at Barnes & Noble today, but I couldn't find one. And I could have asked, but I didn't. But I couldn't find a copy. And now that I've been listening to the audiobook, I think maybe that's a good thing that I couldn't find a copy, because I don't know that I'm gonna love this very much. So right now it's just kind of like fine to have on in the background while I'm doing other things, but I'm not hooked. I'm also kind of bored by 1984 and debating reading it, so we'll see. I have some things in flux, but yeah, I gotta read, what am I reading? I need to read North and South for today. Kids are at D&D for a couple of hours with their friends, and my husband's gonna go hang out with some friends, so I have a couple hours. I could read, I could watch BookTube, I could work out, probably like try to do all 3 of those things. It's a little bit of paralysis by analysis because I'm like so overwhelmed by all the things I want to do in the relatively short amount of time I have to do them, and it's making me like do nothing because I just don't know which one to choose. So we'll see. Oh, I do have an update for you. I finished Coup de Grace this morning and I gave it 4.5 stars. Can you believe it? I can't believe it. I did not think. I thought I might like it, but I was kind of unsure because I have heard really mixed reviews for this book. I mean, only 2 mixed reviews. I had one glowing review and then one, they're a low review or a DNF. Now I can't remember. And of course I can't remember the booktubers who like put it on my radar at all. But yeah, so this is a really weird novella about a man, like I said, who's on his way on the subway to drown himself because he's just spent years being clinically depressed and he's exhausted by it and just ready for it to be over. And he gets out at a subway stop and enters into this labyrinth of the subway, and he's just wandering through this never-ending subway station and he just cannot find his way out, and there's a ton of body horror. I feel like queer horror like always leans into the body horror, and I'm not complaining. Like, it totally makes sense. And I don't mind body horror, but I was like caught off guard by just how visceral the descriptions of this body horror were gonna be. So watch out for that, because I was not prepared for how things are gonna be described. But I loved the writing. It was so creative. There was like this technique or tactic used at the end, but I don't want to say what it was because it was such a fun surprise that I don't want to spoil it for anybody else who might pick up this book. But I was utterly delighted by that addition, and it made the reading experience like even more fun. The chapters are short. The reason it's like a 4.5 and not a 5 is because even though I felt like the writing was beautiful and I loved how the author, I can't remember their last name, but you know, you're looking at it here. What was I saying? Oh, because even though I loved the writing and I loved how things were being described, every once in a while it felt like the author like went hunting through
thesaurus to find different words to use, you know? And not too often, but every once in a while and so that kind of like would pull me out a little bit because it was just unnecessarily flowery. Like flowery to the point where it's like, okay, this is like word salad. What is this? What does a sentence even mean anymore at this point? So that's the only reason it's not a 5, because I like surprisingly really, really loved this book. And I don't know who I'd recommend it for. My initial thought, and the book I kept coming back to, was Piranesi by Susanna Clark, but with the caveat of I hated Piranesi when I read it. Like read it. Because it was so much was not having a good time. So I don't know if that would still be a recommendation. Maybe. Just maybe not. It would not be the recommendation that would sell me on it. But I think that's the closest that I can get to, where you have this main character who you're following, who's stuck in this labyrinth. And yeah, I thought it was really great. So yay. And I mean, now I'm like now I'm more motivated to pick up walking practice sooner rather than later, because like, what if I'm entering like weird queer horror, you know? So I don't know if this is horror. Eric LaRocca blurbed it on the back. So sure. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm just rambling. I will probably talk to you guys tomorrow, because it's going to take me a while to figure out what the heck I'm going to do tonight. And then it's just me and the kids for the rest of the night. We're having spaghetti and meatballs and garlic bread for dinner. And it is Slayer Sunday, which means we're watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We started last weekend. So we get to finish part 2 of Homecoming, so episode 2 today. And the kids were all a little unsure when we watched the pilot last week. But then this morning when I said it's Slayer Sunday, everybody went, yay! So, woohoo! But this has been really fun to go back to it. I avoided Buffy for quite a while. Like, I grew up watching Buffy because I think I was 13 when it started airing. And my dad and I, if I remember correctly, watched from the beginning and were really big Buffy fans. And watched it all through all 7 seasons. And I just absolutely loved it. And the allegations about Joss Whedon just being an absolute dirtbag really, it took me a while to come back to the show. I'll just say that way. Like, it took me a long time to come back and be able to engage with it again, knowing that the person who created something I loved so much treated the other people creating it so horribly. But I'm trying to focus on the actors who created it and not on him. So yeah, it's been nice to come back to it and introduce my kids to this fandom. So, okay, now I'm gonna go. Bye. Okay, it's the same day. I worked out. Yay me. Meatballs are in the oven and children are not home yet. Can we believe the sunlight? It's beautiful. I have the windows open. It's a little chilly, but the fresh air is amazing. But we need to hold on. Also, I've been listening to 100 Years of War on Palestine. Y'all, I didn't even have that much caffeine today. And I've had no energy drinks. My last cup of coffee was like at 10 before we went to the bookstore. So it's the power of the sun, basically. But I got my screen report for last week for my phone. And it was not good. So I am going to impulsively combine the Ketchup and Pickles vlog with a replacing my screen time with reading time, because this cannot continue. This is not sustainable. Hold, please, while I figure out how to see last week's screen time, because that always takes me a minute to remember where that is. I was on my phone for 6 hours and 38 minutes last Sunday. Why? Why was I on my phone that much? Oh, I have to stop watching YouTube on my phone. Okay, we're not going to count today, but tomorrow. All right, tomorrow I have to read for 3 hours and 23 minutes. Okay? Okay. It's not okay. Oh, good gravy. And then Tuesday, 5.5 hours. What was I doing? Anyways, all right. So tomorrow, that's what we're doing. And we're going to do that for the rest of the month. For what we have left, oh, sun went away. Okay. And then maybe I will actually finish stuff instead of
being frustrated that I'm not finishing anything and starting things instead. Because when will I learn that that does not work for me? Okay, we have a plan. I feel good about it. I'm going to keep listening to 100 Years War on Palestine because the audiobook is good. I highly recommend consuming this book on audio because I am riveted. It's a really like perfect for me, like perfect balance of like fact and family anecdotes because the author's family has lived in Palestine for years and years and years and years. And so like it's like perfect combo for me. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow when I have to read 3 hours and 28 minutes, whatever. It's a lot. All right, hello friends. It's the next day. It's about 8:43 and I have read for almost an hour and a half. I have 2 hours and 2 minutes left. I have been on my phone a little bit more this morning than I would have liked because my oldest threw up this morning. So I've been trying to like get a hold of my boss and like get my classes canceled and all that stuff. So a little bit more phone time than I would have liked. But I did listen to all of the next chapter of the War on Palestine this morning before I had to get everybody up and ready for school and before the oldest got sick. And then like as I was making school lunches and stuff. And then I've been sitting working on North and South while I was waiting to hear back from my boss. But it was like a real distracted reading because I was anxious about hearing back. But it's all settled now. That child is resting and listening to music and reading. So I think I'm going to turn on a background and I guess I'll continue to read because today is now going to be a very different day than initially thought. That's all I've got. All right. War on Palestine, the 100 Years War on Palestine continues to be very good. Highly recommend. You don't know what you don't know, but I wish this had been a book that I had read sooner because now knowing all this history, the U.S.'s government's response to the atrocities occurring in Gaza, it's not surprising because there's a long history of it. Anyways, I'm gonna go read. Hello everyone, it is the end of the day and I owe you an update. It is 6:12 and I have an hour and 42 minutes left of my 5 hours and 27 minutes. I don't know that I'm going to get there. My middle kid and I are going to go watch the second episode of North and South, so that's really exciting. I do have a couple of quick reading updates to give you. First of all, I am 63% of the way into 1984 and I'm so bored. I'm so bored. I need this to be over. I just need it to be over. But this is dystopian and it's set in 1984, hence the title. And it is a imagined alternate history and it's set in London. And this part of the world has been taken over by this oligarchy called Big Brother who basically controls people's thoughts. There are the thought police. If you are caught not following the rules or what you're supposed to do, the thought police come and drag you away. It's very controlling. Big Brother manipulates the news. People are lied to. The events and reality are altered so that Big Brother is always right. I get it. I get it. And I get the historical importance of this book, but I never would have thought that this was the same author as Animal Farm. Because I read Animal Farm for the first time in January, and actually really liked it. Like, I liked the themes. I liked how Orwell told the story. I gave it like 4 stars. Like, I thought that was like a really well-crafted story. This is so boring in comparison, and it's too long. I really think this could have been a novella, short, sweet, snappy, and we would have gotten through it. It's basically a political lecture disguised as a novel, and it's so boring. I just need it to be over. I'm starting to hate my reading life a little bit because of it, but I'm so close to being done. And then this will be a book that I will be able to be like, yeah, totally read that. I don't have a gap in my classic dystopian novel reading list anymore. Oh boy, am I bored. What else? Oh, North and South. North and South, I am loving. Again, I swung back the other way. I forgot how action-packed this book was. So much happens to Margaret, and I'd kind of forgotten about it. So Margaret has an older brother who's quite a bit older than she is, and he was in the Navy, and then was given orders that he disagreed with, and so he mutinied and then had to flee the country so that he wouldn't go to jail. So the family hasn't seen him since Margaret was, I think, like 4 or 5. Like, he's been gone for a long time. Maybe she was a little bit older, but like, he's been gone for a long time. And Margaret's mom talks about him all the time. Like, if you wondered if Margaret's mother has a favorite child, you won't after you listen to her talk about Frederick for a couple pages. Poor Margaret. She deserves better parents. So after they moved to Milton, Margaret's mom gets ill, and the doctor is like, it's not going to end good, folks. It's not going to end good. And so Margaret and her father like write to Frederick. He's in Spain, I think, and beg him to come back. And he does, but at like a lot of risk to himself. And Frederick coming back into England is really, really dangerous. And so the family starts to get really like secretive, understandably. And Thornton sees Elizabeth sees Margaret and Frederick together at the train station, but from a distance. And because the family never talks about Frederick because of the shame of him being mutinied, Thornton assumes that this is like Margaret's beau. And well, of course she rejected Thornton when she has like this secret person that she's in love with. And it just causes so much drama. And I continue to think that the parents in this book are the worst. Like, Margaret's parents are so childish, and Margaret is basically the parent in this relationship. Like, she takes care of both of them so much. And then like, there was a really sad part where, okay, it's spoiler, but it's also a 200-year-old book, but Margaret's mother dies at a little over halfway into the book, and it's heartbreaking for the whole family. Margaret is devastated because she feels like she has just rebuilt her relationship with her mother, and now she's gone. And so I think it's maybe 2 weeks, a friend of the family like invites them to come and stay with him in a different town, and her father decides to go and Margaret decides to stay. And her thought as her father is leaving is, she's like, oh, I can rest now. I don't have to take care of anyone. I don't have to perform happiness or cheerfulness. She's like, she has the luxury now of being sad and of grieving for her mother now that her father has gone. And I just thought that was so heartbreaking that you're, as a parent, you put this your child in this position where they can't even process their own feelings because they're so busy coddling your own feelings, and just, oh, it was so sad. But I continue to think Margaret's parents are so bad. And then Thornton's mom is kind of the worst too. She's one of those moms who thinks her son can do no wrong and is like this paragon of manliness, and how dare anybody say anything negative about him or not find him attractive or, heaven forbid, refuse his offer of marriage. Like, if Thornton's mother was parenting in 2025, she would 100% be one of those moms who puts her little boy in like a t-shirt or a onesie that's like, the only woman in my life is my mom. It's like a big red flag. So anyways, North and South is going great. 1984 is making me wanna I don't know, put my head in the oven. And 100 Years War in Palestine is really good. Sad, but good. And I haven't even touched Watermoon at all today. So yeah, okay. I'm gonna go watch episode 2 of North and South and continue to hate all these parents, but in 3D. Well, 2D, but you know what I mean. Hello, everyone. I did not update you yesterday. I'm so sorry. It just wasn't in the cards. I did not make my time. I had to read this much and I had like 51 minutes left, but I spent a good chunk of yesterday afternoon after I got home from work recording, editing, and uploading a video, which you will have seen by this time. It is this one if you want to go check it out if you haven't already. But I do have reading updates because even though I didn't make that amount of time, I still read stuff. I finished 1984, thank goodness. I'm giving it 2 stars. And my explanation is what I said earlier, where this is a political speech. How did I phrase it? Oh no, I've already forgotten. It's a lecture about politics disguised as fiction, and it was just so boring. Basically, so boring. So 2 stars. I'm so glad I didn't have to read it in high school because I never would have made it through that book. I definitely would have failed that unit if I had had to read that as a teenager. But moving on, I am almost done with 100 Years War in Palestine. I just have the conclusion left to listen to, which I think is about 25 minutes. I mean, I think it's like an hour or a little under an hour, but I'm listening at 2 times speed, so it is 25 minutes. And then I am on track to finish North and South by tomorrow. I might try to finish it today, depending on how today goes. I do have to teach this morning, and then I have to go grocery shopping. I have not worked out since Monday. I'd like to go to the gym. I think it would be good for me mentally and emotionally to go to the gym, but I don't know if there's time because I do have to go back for afternoon classes. So we'll see. There's only so much time in the day. We'll see if I'm able to finish this, but I am really liking it. I also watched the 2nd episode of the mini-series the other night, and oh my goodness. Okay, episode 1 was a little bit bumpy for me. I was definitely watching it going, ooh, I don't know if this is going to be as good as I remember it being. I don't really, there's some things that I was like, I don't know if I like this. And then episode 2, it's like it found its stride, and oh my, and the way Richard Armitage looks at the actress that plays Margaret, oh, it's so good. And I think I've said this already. I just had forgotten how action-packed this book was. There are so many things that happen to Margaret, and like the romance is definitely not the focus. It's a good part of the book, but I don't think it's the main part. Like the social commentary is the main part. And Margaret, I'm at the part where Margaret just found out something about her dad, and it's kind of wrecks her a little bit, and so sad, but so good. And initially, maybe at the halfway mark, I was like, ooh, maybe this will only be like a 3.5 or a 4-star book. Maybe it's not like the 5-star that I remember it being, but I might be back on that 5-star train. I just love this story so much. I love Elizabeth Gaskell's writing. I think she has really accessible writing as far as classics goes. I don't think she's hard to follow. I think her prose flows really well. Every once in a while there's words that I don't know. And there's a lot of French in this book, but that's okay. I just kind of skim over the French and move on, and it hasn't really impacted my enjoyment or understanding of what is going on. So yeah, this is going well. And so the hope is, because tomorrow's the last day of this vlog, so my hope is I can finish North and South and 100 Years War in Palestine today, and then tomorrow I can devote to Watermoon, because I'm 40-something% of the way through Watermoon and have just over 3 hours left, but I'm listening to it at 1.8 speed. Is that right? How long is this supposed to be? Okay, so I think that's right. So I would really like to devote tomorrow to listening to this so that I can finish it before February is over. I'm liking it okay. I think, so it's narrated by Cindy Kay, and I used to really like Cindy Kay as a narrator, but I think because apparently we only have like 2 Asian audiobook narrators, which is ridiculous. So she ends up narrating a lot of the books I pick up by Asian American or Asian authors, and there's a raspiness to her voice that I don't totally love, and she doesn't have a lot of variation in her character voices, unfortunately. So it works well when she's doing something like the Singing Hill Cycle series by Nevo, because those have a kind of more fairy tale storytelling quality to them. So it's not as big of a deal if there's not a lot of variation in her tonal quality. But in something like Watermoon, I'm really missing some more dynamic reading, I think. And so it's fine when she's doing the narration, but when she's doing dialogue, it ends up feeling very one note. There's not a lot of differentiation between character voices, and it feels like very stilted and not very emotionally charged. So I think I would have a better time with Watermoon if I was reading it physically, but I just don't have access to a physical book because it's still on hold at the library, and I don't want to buy a book that so far I'm just having like an time with. And the ebook is like $12.99. It's too much for an ebook. I'm not going to do that. If it was like $1.99, I would probably buy it to read physically, but I'm not going to do $12.99. Anyways, was there anything else I wanted to say about Watermoon? Oh, there's also the start of the romance, and I 100% do not buy the romance. I feel like it's wholly unnecessary. We'll see if I still feel that way as I progress. But right now, I'm just like, we didn't need this, and I didn't want this. I didn't ask for this. Why do we have this? So anyways, there's your update. So anyways, that's how it's going. I'm really excited to dive into March. I'm kind of over my February books, I'll be honest, but I only have 2 more days of February, so I think I can make it through. I mean, I can't make it through. It's just so dramatic all the time. Hello everyone, it is the end of Friday. It's February 28th, so it's the last day of February. I did not do the timer today because I only had 1 book left to finish, and I knew I was going to get it done, so I didn't need the extra push to pick up my book. But I did finish North and South last night. I'm giving it 4.5. I did check on Goodreads because I was still a Goodreads user at the time that I read this for the first time, and I gave it 5 stars. It's a 4.5 now just because there were things with some characters that really irritated me, which is probably the point, but it was just they're just so annoying. But I did end up really loving this. I had forgotten just how much action there was in this book and how many things happened. I really like Margaret. I like Margaret's ability to admit when she doesn't know what she's talking about, when she makes a mistake, how willing she is to learn, and then also how generous she is with the people in this story. But man, talk about a slow ass burn. You had to wait all the way until the second to last page for these 2 knuckleheads to admit their feelings to each other. So I think if you like classics, if you like super slow burn romance, if you like Pride and Prejudice, like if you're a Jane Austen fan, pick up Elizabeth Gaskell. I think she's just as good, and her books have a weight to them that Austen's don't have that I really enjoy. I love Austen as well, but I like the weight that Elizabeth Gaskell has too. Well, North and South, since I've only read 1 book by her, but by the end of the year, that will have changed. And then I did finish Watermoon today, and I think I would have had a better time if I hadn't been listening to the audio. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I liked the latter half better than the first half, but I think it's a little ironic that I am, as a person, a very earnest person, but I do not like super earnest books. And this book is super earnest in all of its facets, and that's not always a dynamic that works for me. I mean, I can handle earnestness if there is another component, like if there's like a lot of humor or something else going on, but like a book that is just earnest to be earnest is not going to hit for me. At times it ended up really just feeling like Instagram quotes, like a book of Instagram quotes. You know, like when people use Canva to make, and no shade to Canva users, I use Canva too, but like, you know what I'm talking about, like that really traditional or stereotypical Instagram post where it's just like the graphic of the quote across the page. Like that's what this book reminded me of.
Where's my iPad? I need it. I don't have it.
What was I saying? Oh, I did end up liking it more the farther we got into it. I thought the world building actually was really well done. I really liked this magic system and these multi-dimensions and how the travel worked between the two of them. And the magic system was very, very cool. It cared too much. Oh, that's a red flag for me to say that. But yeah, I feel like it just cared too much. And I didn't care enough. So yeah, so 3 stars. I would recommend it still because I think if you like Before the Coffee Gets Cold, like that type of book, you would probably like this. There's another book that I've read recently that I also didn't care for because of its earnestness, and I can't remember what it is, but if Editing Emily remembers what it is, I'll put the cover here. So if you like whatever book I hope is right here, you might like Watermoon. Because I don't think it's a bad book. I just don't think it was the right book for me, and I'm really glad that I did not spend my money on it. But with all that, we are done. February is over. Yay! I'm ready for it to be March and to not have to look at this TBR anymore. But this was a really, really, really successful and productive Ketchup and Pickles vlog. I got through a lot of books. I was really nervous that I was not going to be able to finish the things that I needed to finish before the end of the month. So this was great. Also, it is pronounced coup de grace. I was saying it wrong. Coup de grace is definitely my favorite thing that I read in this vlog. I did go and order a physical copy. I'm just waiting for my indie bookstore to call me and let me know that it is there because I had to order a copy in. And yeah, that's that. So thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end and you want to leave an emoji to let me know that you are here, let's do a moon emoji. And like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll talk to y'all in the next one. Bye.